Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Speci here, and it's a Schirru deck guide today. It's the final list because I've climbed. I know I said the final list last time, but look, I've climbed so much MMR. This is my highest MMR I've ever achieved on Gwent. So really, really chuffed to do it. I'm pretty sure this is the best, if not one of the best Square Tail scores so far this season. So really, really happy. As you can see, played a lot of games, and we're going to get into a game after this. I actually lost my last 2 games when playing Square Tail last night. So I'm hopeful we can still push it further because we went on a bit of a win streak. I thought I'd stop. A great selling point of this deck is it's the most fun deck I've played in a long time, and it's also great against Skellige. Great combination of things, and yeah, what more do you want in a deck? So we are playing Devotion. You could not play Devotion and go down like a Gord route with Schirru, which is very, very reasonable, and I will actually be bringing you a deck guide on that soon. I think this list is better, but it's still very good, and it's a lot of fun as well, so definitely worth sharing, because I worked quite hard on that one too. Just decided this one was better in the end. Yeah, you get a great Devotion payoff. Ethne, great card in round 3. Even if this card gets Falibord, it leaves you with a 5 strength engine. They've got a 7-point Falibor, and they've not been able to develop any of their engines. You're going to play more than 3 nature cards, so it actually trades up on Falibor in round 3. If left unanswered, just gets an insane amount of points. Brixenet, never bad. He can be good in round 1 to boost something up in your hand, and there's quite a few Dryads you want to boost as well, such as Dunker here. Really nice way of just buffing Dunker up, keeping her alive. Also, a nice buff on Fove. If you want to play for some tempo, you can buff something up like Fove that you're going to play that round, or you could buff something up that you're going to play later on as well, that you want to play for carryover. So just a great card, very flexible, puts an engine down on the board, and good in round 1, good in round 2, good in round 3. I really love this card. And Oak Critters, man, Oak Critters just makes your Rebukes even better. I think Rebuke is a big reason this deck's so good. We've got so much control with the Nature's Rebuke. If you've got a Treant down on the board, this card plays for 7 points with 5 removal, which is just insane for 5 provisions. It's just the best version of like a Thunder. If you compare this card to Boiling Ore, it's quite incredible how much better it is. So you've got 2 Rebukes, but you're also going to be able to play a third through Forest Protector. So 3 Rebukes, really nice option to have. When accompanied with your Precision Strike lead abilities and a few other damage tools we've got, you've just got a very control-heavy deck. I think obviously Schirru's just an important card to mention, and you are going to be playing Schirru most of the time through Council, but you've also got the option to play him through Call. So if you want to play Schirru from hand, he's going to be in at 3 points, and there's no way of buffing him particularly well with this deck. Previously I've used Miners as a way, but I'm not including those at the moment. And Schirru at 3 points, in some matchups is good against Elves, against Deadeye Ambush. He can be good, and you can still, even if you draw into him, he can still be good. But he's the only elf, so Council is going to pull him 100% of the time at 5 points. Really, really nice. All of the Forest is going to call him in at 4 points. Also very nice. But if you do have him in your hand, you do have a little bit of flexibility to work with because we are using double Circle of Life. I've kind of fallen in love with this card. It's amazing if you're going second. You can just keep 2 Circle of Lives in your hand with the option of a third from Forest Protector in certain matchups. It's removal, which is really nice, but also it can buff up cards in your hand for carryover, or even cards you want to play that round for an engine. It's just a great, great card. I absolutely love it. Also, quite interesting, you can buff Schirru up, which is something you don't do particularly often, but it is worth mentioning. You could maybe, Schirru could catch a buff off Dunker and a Circle of Life, and suddenly you've got a 6-point Schirru. That's really not a joke. Really, really nice option to have. But actually, just the Circle of Life just feels great. With this deck, all the damage pings you've got, it can also in some situations line up your Schirru value. It can remove an engine. It can do all sorts of just really nice things. I just love this card. I think another thing that's worth mentioning is against Skellige, it's great because the Berserker cards that come in at 5 points and then damage themselves by 1, they go to 3 strength and then they'll have 1 more, they'll damage themselves once more, and then at 2 strength they transform. So 3 removal is really, really useful against Skellige because you can take out that Berserker, develop some of your own carryover. It's also a nature card as well, so cards like Ethne that have our Symbiosis proc work really, really well with it. I think another card just to mention that's just a great card is the Treant Boar. Another great target for your Circle of Life. Pulling it in at 7 power, getting those 2 points of hand buff on it makes it very difficult to deal with. Compared with Pavko, which is a card I'm not including, and I have to shout out Saber and Green Knight for convincing me this is not the way to go. Big thanks to those guys for giving me a bit of help with the deck last week. Really, really appreciate it. Lovely fellas. The Treant Boar, because it's got this Zeal ability, if you control Dryad, it gets Zeal. It plays for 7 points for 7 provisions guaranteed, which includes 2 removal. It also demands an answer, and the fact that you can buff up with Circle of Life just turns it into an incredibly good card. Really, really great for lining up your Schirru values, and also having that damage floating on the board can be really nice, because if this doesn't get answered, you're going to have 2 damage, and then you could Circle of Life for an extra rebuke, essentially. If there's a 7 strength unit, you could Treant Boar plus rebuke to get that full value. Just really nice. As long as, if you can line up cards at 5 strength to get that full rebuke value while also buffing up a Treant and removing a really good card, it just becomes an incredibly good deck. Obviously, you've got leader charges to manipulate that as well. So these little damage procs just work incredibly nicely. Now, I mean, I think we should just put Oak in, because Oak's a big boy gold card that is just very, very good in this deck. You swarm quite a lot with cards like Ethne, and also we're going to be playing Critters, and we're going to be playing a couple of other Symbiosis cards. And Symbiosis, every time you play a nature card, a Wandering Treant's going to spawn. So you do fill up pretty nicely indeed. So Oak's great. Now, if you look at all these cards, all of them are pretty meh, to be honest. Like, you've got a couple point slam cards. Saskia is just not that good. In at 10 as well, obviously you've got Justice. In at 9, I've been using cards like Mullane. Nothing really fancy in at 8 or 9. To be completely honest, none of these cards really float my boat. Same in at 7, I've tried Gord, but again, I think you just play a non-devotion list if you go that. In at 6, again, there's nothing really amazing. I've tried like a Smuggler, I've tried Brienne, but it all kind of feels meh. Justice is still a really good option though. The bad side of Justice is it's not a nature card, unfortunately, and you don't have a way of tutoring it. So if you don't draw Justice, it does feel pretty bad, but it's not the end of the world. So obviously with Justice, we're going to use a few dwarfs, and I am, unsurprisingly, perhaps, using the Marauders, a card I've not been using that often. But when you use Justice, you've just got a very consistent chance of getting that bonded ability. They're proactive, they play for a lot of points. Even if you don't get the bonded ability, they still play for 6, and they're proactive. So it's pretty good. Whereas like a Miner plays for 6, and it can just be removed with a like natural selection or something, and then you don't even get the value out of it. So just this card is much better. And just for a bit of consistency sake, we're also using a Skirmisher. This card is so good in this deck. I'm actually really still tempted to jiggle one of the cards around and use 2 of these, because again, all this damage is just super good. You can Dwarven Skirmisher and use a leader charge to remove something. You can Dwarven Skirmisher. You could maybe use an Oak Critters, then Skirmisher, then rebuke something like a Frigate that's been buffed up to a high value. Just gives you so many nice options. Also, you can line up Schirru value. Let's say your opponent's got an 8 strength unit. Rather than using 3 leader charges, you could just ping down with the Skirmisher. So I'd say they're like sort of the auto-include cards with double Caress as well, because Caress is a nature card, great against Skellige, nice way of buffing up your units. And as you can see, we're at 13 units, so you're starting to think, oh, is Gord worth it? Not quite. I don't think he quite is. He's not far off with it, but there's actually a few cards in at 5 that I think are really solid that I will show you in just a second. You might be thinking, okay, Spess, you're going to be using the Broccolon Sentinels. This is something I definitely need to touch on. This card is a trap. It makes your mulligans worse. 5 provision cards are inherently not great to include in your deck, because there's loads of good 4 provision cards in Square in this deck, like Abandoned Girls, Skirmishers, Miners, and Enchantresses. Even Tempering's not that bad either. So including these 5 provision cards when they're kind of meh just feels weird. They make your mulligans worse. They play for 4 points if you go for the death blow. And actually, what you'll find is with your leader ability, you'll ping 3 times, and then you'll use the Broccolon Sentinel as 2 damage to line something else up into your Schirru range. Because let's say your opponent's got a 7 strength unit, and they've got a couple of 3 6s, you go ping the 6, ping the 6, ping the 6, and then you use the 2 damage to make the 7 a 5. And that's going to remove engines and just clear your opponent's board much more efficiently, rather than worrying about lining up a death blow for your Broccolon Sentinels. And makes your mulligans worse. You already want to mulligan Schirru most of the time, and they don't actually thin your deck because it's round 3 you want to use your leader. So these cards are a trap, completely sold on that. Also, because there's lots of damage cards we want to use, they're just 2 cards that we put into our deck that aren't proactive, and that just kind of feels bad when there's so many damage cards I want to use. The next card might surprise you. Obviously, I'm a bit in love with the Hammer Dryad, but it's not the Hammer Dryad. It's actually, surprisingly, and this card is, I'm a massive fan, is the Duncanel Guardian. 5 points for 5 provisions. Seems terrible, okay? But it's actually secretly really solid, because it's got a Veil. Doesn't do that much, but it is worth mentioning because you can play this card on the board. It can't get poisoned, etc. It's got Symbiosis, and on deploy you're damaging by 2. All these things just add up to make it pretty solid. It's also a Dryad as well, which means your Frixinate can buff it. Your Treant Boar gets your Zeal off of it as well, so that's worth mentioning. But the 2 damage is, again, just great for lining up Schirru. It's great for lining up rebuke value to get full rebuke value. It's great for lining up Circle of Life if you want to make sure you get the death blow. Let's say, for instance, you've got Fne and Schirru in hand and you don't want to hand buff those. They're already at like the range you want. You want to make sure you get that targeted, or you really want to buff up your Treant Boar. You can use this Guardian as one of your first plays to line the Circle of Life up. And maybe save Rebuke for round 3, which can be really, really good. You get that full Circle of Life value while removing an engine, and you get to keep your Rebukes for later on. So this card's just super good. Also, being at 3 strength, let's say I put a Hammer Dryad down on the board, and you're my opponent, you're happy removing that. Similar with an Abandoned Girl. If I put this Abandoned Girl down on the board, you're like, sweet, yeah, I'll just take the Rebuke, sure. Whereas with a, wherever it is, the Duncanel Guardian, think if you're my opponent and I play this card, do you feel great about sinking a Thunder or something like that into this card? Probably not. There's not many cards that deal 3 damage. This is sort of one of the few decks that actually has multiple ways. I know obviously you've got Falibor as well as another way. I'm trying to highlight Dunker here as another way, because Dunker against Skellige, just use her as 4, deal 3 because the stunning blow is still pretty solid. So yeah, you just don't want to remove this card most of the time. And what it also does is if you've got this card down on the board and you're to use a Circle of Life, it's going to spawn a 1 strength Wandering Treant, which then means you've got Treants down on the board for your Rebuke to catch some value later on as well, which is really, really good. So we've got 1 slot left. This is probably the 1 slot I'm still not completely sure on. I have been playing this. This is what I've climbed with the Tempering. It's a nature card, so you can buff up your Guardian. Again, it's got that Veil, so you don't feel too bad about buffing it up. And it's also then going to spawn that 1 strength Wandering Treant that I mentioned, which is just going to be good for catching Rebuke value. Also, it's very useful on Dunker. A lot of the time, you can TA Dunker and people will try and damage her down. And you can just use your Tempering on her to put her up at 5. Whereas a Caress will remove the Veil. It's an okay card. Also in round 3, it's pretty good because you can use Tempering. After Ethne, you can Tempering one of your young Dryads. So you've got some decent options. I'm not in love with it though. I think this is the 1 slot you can play around with. Everything else I'm sold on. So what else could you use if you want to try it out? Because what's great about this deck is we just avoid using, because we're using these 5 provision cards that just feel actually really solid, you avoid using these cards like Brienne, which is like pretty meh. You avoid using cards like Pavko and Malena, which just make your, the fact you're going to have an elf in your deck if you use Malena is just kind of awkward, and she's not even that good for her provision cost. So yeah, these 5s are just making the deck feel much solid. What else could you go for in at 4? Well, I think Abandoned Girl, Enchantress, maybe a Miner, a Tempering, or another Skirmisher are your main options here. You don't want to go for an elf for sure. Abandoned Girl, nice proactive option. Again, it's got that Symbiosis. Also worth mentioning that against against Nilfgaard and against Syndicate, this card's very good to lead in with against Poison, because you can play this down as a proactive play and they can try and poison it, but then you can just transform it. So actually the Abandoned Girl is a really nice option instead of the Tempering. The Miner's good because it gives you an extra option off your Justice. I think you don't want to use this card though. I don't know, it just seems like it's not that good. There's not really that many things you want to protect, because you don't want to lead in with a Miner and then play Dunker. You'd probably just rather play Dunker straight away and like Frickson it maybe first before Dunker rather than this. So I don't think it's a Miner. But you can do some nice things with Schirru, buffing Schirru up and the like. An Enchantress is 7 points for 4 provisions. Really solid, but lots of our cards have Veil, so it just feels a little bit awkward at times. So yeah, I think the Enchantress or another Skirmisher, both solid options. I think I'm going to go with, for today, bear in mind I have been using Tempering and this is what's got me there, so maybe stick with Tempering, but I think Skirmisher or Abandoned Girl are tempting me in. I think I'm going to go for the, should we get the Abandoned, let's go for the Skirmisher, double Skirm. Yeah, solid, let's go double Skirmisher, whatever man. We can always mulligan it and it just gives us like a bit of flexibility with our Justice. I do love a Skirmisher. I think the Abandoned Girl is also worth a shot. It's that last little slot that you want to just mess around with. Now, unfortunately, I have to confess, I climbed all the way up while using Blip Rivendell as my leader, and he's just got the worst emotes in the game. So Ethne, much better emotes, because you've got some very solid ones that hopefully I'll be able to show you off in this game. Thanks so much for watching the video up to this point. I hope you've enjoyed this style. Against Skellige, don't overcommit round 1. Just try and get some carry over if you can. Obviously, don't lose on even. But if you're going second, there is actually a lot of the time you can push Skellige and win on even in round 1 if you play it sensibly. But just don't overcommit too early. Just see how the game goes, stay in it, see what you can do. Just try and shut down a lot of their cards. Don't let them get the 4 provision that busts warriors, like getting value, because then that takes away from your rebuke value. Against Nilfgaard, try and win round 1 and try and bleed ball out round 2 and then just round 3 win. Against monsters and any card like Uprising that you think you should be able to get decent Schirru value, just try and win round 1 and go for that long round 3, because better players will bleed you in round 2. Okay, we're going first against SK. Guys, bear in mind we're very high up on the ladder, okay? So chances are, this high up on the ladder, even though I'm titled the Skellige Destroyer, because I've got like a 70% win ratio against Skellige, going first, this is going to be a real struggle. I'm not expecting to win this one, okay? I'll be honest. This is like going to be very tough, but we will see. Now, Double Circle of Life going first is very awkward because it's a super slow line of play, but it's not that bad. I think I'm going to kick the Skirmisher instead, honestly, and just try and hold on to these to try and get some carryover. And I've got 1 mulligan left if I choose to use it. Maybe I do just kick on. Let's just ditch. Yeah, let's just ditch that, sod it. So here's again where an Abandoned Girl could come in pretty useful, right? You could lead in with the Abandoned Girl, because if you look at my hand, I've got a severe lack of proactivity. But this is what Fricks does again. 2 options with Fricks. I could buff up a Guardian, or I could buff up Fove. 5 removal is not really particularly common in Skellige, but I think I'm more likely to want to buff this up, as it gives me a nice tempo option if I'm really struggling, because I'm going first, sorry. I mean, I'm likely to play a Guardian next, so that would add to my initial tempo. Maybe I'll just go for the Guardian. I think I'm going for Fove here. And I think I take the buff because of Blood Eagle. Yeah. I'm pretty happy with this. I think putting this at 5 is kind of not worth it. Whereas with this, I could go for like a Rebuke, or I could go for even a call for the Forest. So no Sign of Justice just yet. Obviously, lots of Dwarfs in the deck. This is just a card we want to shut down. I actually think it's probably worth a leader charge here against Skellige. And you can see the beauty of the Circle of Life. Also, we'll buff up our boar. Already you can see why I'm such a fan of this deck. Normally you don't want to use leader charges round 1, but ultimately we're against Skellige. We need to do everything we possibly can to win. Already I've buffed my hand by 4 points, and I've got this board state. I've got a Young Dryad down on the board, so every time I play a Symbiosis card, I'm going to spawn a Wandering Treant. But I've actually got the Wandering Treant as well, so my Rebukes now are just going to carry me for some really good value. We're not really bothered about this. We just probably answer with... I mean, I could put the board down, but the damage is a little bit threatening. I think rather than rebuking this or Circle of Life thing and buffing a random card, I think we just go for a trusty Guardian here. I don't have Oak in this hand either, so we probably shouldn't roast that. This other Circle of Life is going to be pretty good to keep for a Berserker if that does come down. And also the 2 damage here means he could damage my boar and then decoction me. But I think you can already see why this deck's done so well for me. Everything just works together really nicely. This card is great in this deck. These cards just feel good as well. Like, if I put a Hammer Dryad down here, it gets removed. I put an Abandoned Girl down here, it gets removed. Whereas at least this has done something. It's threatening this, so he can't just leave this damage floating. He's pretty much got to use the damage now. And it's also a Veiled unit, so that can be useful in some matchups. Just playing... The Veil doesn't do too much for it in this list, to be honest. But you could hand buff this card knowing it can't get poisoned in round 3. I've actually had like a 13 point one of these, and maybe even like an 18 point one of these at one point as well. Not gonna lie, that was pretty mad. Like, how happy are you with that? Very happy. He's gonna Stunning Blow it, and is he gonna leave this damage floating as well? He's not. That's a bit of a shame. I think we just play the boar here. I do want to win this round, so let's get that engine up and running. And we've still got this carryover on Fove. Don't really mind committing this Guardian. Still not even played a single rebuke, and I've managed to answer all my opponent's units here. Damn, you can see why the deck's done so well in it. I'm not lying to you, it is very good. And you can see it's good against Skellige too. So, a couple of options. But I'm pretty sure it's always just another Guardian here. And I'm not going to roast stack because Hemdall exists. Again, This gives me Circle of Life value if I want to take it. I could have also taken Circle of Life just then. But to be honest, if he passes, I'll probably just take Circle of Life anyway. And probably buff my Fove again. Maybe my Protector though. We will see. We will see. Of course, this card, you can just... You don't have to kill a unit and it'll buff a random card. But obviously, may as well take the death blow since it's there. And if he's to play something else here, I've obviously got the Rebuke. But I've equally got 2 damage here, plus a Circle of Life. So I've actually kind of got a Rebuke that, instead of the 2 points on the board for tempo, it gives me 2 carryover. Really solid. Really, really solid. And of course, you can see the leader charge invested into killing the Blacksmith. Definitely worth it. 1 single ping. Taking that card out to develop my Boar carryover. Really nice. So, I'm going to save my Rebuke. We're going to ping Scale down, and we're just going to get a random buff in our hand. On the Protector. Wiping out Scale. Let's go, baby. Easy wins. We've got 4 points of carryover. Obviously, our Boar had a bit of hand buff as well, but we just played that to secure the round. Bricks in it just did an absolute job. This is why I'm the Skellige Destroyer. You guys doubted me, right? You guys doubted me. Trust me. This is where I find that my mic's muted. It's not muted. Oh my god, I panicked. Oh, thought my mic was actually muted for a second. Not gonna lie, I've done that a few times. I actually recorded a full video last week, uploaded it on YouTube, and then when I press play to watch it, I realized. Okay, so we're gonna pass and go for a long round 3. He's also got no good leader ability, so this guy's had an absolute stinker. Double Caress is bad. 1's fine for Turgvy. We don't need 2. And I mean, the Skirmish is good, but it's the worst card in this hand. So what we're still looking for, Ethne in hand would be good. Oak, Justice. Still got lots. We only play bronze cards. Look at that. We beat Skellige round 1. We got 4 carryover playing these cards. Pretty unreal. Pretty unreal. So, going into a long round 3, I've got 3 Rebukes. Yeah. I've got Justice, which could be damage as well. I've got Oak, I've got... Oh, this is a really nice hand. So, what am I missing? Ethne and Schirru. I could push 1 mulligan here. I think I'll probably just keep this, though, because it's my only Treant that I want to play early. I'm kind of happy with this hand. I could push it further to try and find Ethne in hand, because you want to have Ethne before you use Cool, but this is fine. Let's just keep it, man. Got it. I could, hit Schirru and... Yeah, it's fine. The double Skirmisher gives you a nice option. I think because sometimes you want to play a Skirmisher around 1, it gives you that extra option of a Skirmisher of Justice, because there's sometimes you really want that Skirmisher of Justice. Because the 3 damage is just a really nice option to have. Okay, so 5 is normally your Magic Schirru range. 6 is also very good against Skellige, but I've not been able to hand buff Schirru. So we're going to call him in at 5 off council. So we don't want to bleed this or anything like that. So I think my first play is just going to be Cool into... Oh wow, I've only just realised that I do have double Cress. I almost bricked my Fove, I didn't even check. Maybe we could have kicked a Rebuke from this hand. To be fair, maybe I was supposed to just push mulligans to try and find Ethne. Pretty sure I was. It's all good though. You live and you learn. I've not played it perfectly, but round 1 went very well. Hopefully it doesn't ruin it for us. So yeah, I think I'm just going to call for Ethne. I don't want to touch this because it's like 1 ping away from being in my range. And yeah, I'm more likely to have things at the front. Also Justice, very good against Skellige for the fact that it puts a shield on the board for random damage pings. And it's always a Skirmisher to try and hopefully line up another, or deal with a greatsword or something. Blood Eagle obviously big counter to Ethne unfortunately, but it is what it is, isn't it? You're always playing 2 strength units. Maybe I've let him get this too soon. That has to be said. We obviously don't want to kill Harold either because it's his only good leader target. This is tempting to answer though, let's be honest. Probably not necessary though. I think I just take a Caress here. I know I've got another, so there's no harm. And obviously you've always got the backup on Protector as well. Again, I can't line all of these up at 5, unfortunately. But I don't want to use a leader ping to rebuke it. It just seems pretty bad. So 6 really is the magic number. A little bit annoyed I didn't push a few more mulligans, potentially, but it's all good. It's all good. And maybe you could say you don't want to Airfnay because you just give him this early Blood Eagle, which is where exactly he wants it. But what else am I really supposed to have done? I could have Justiced for a Marauder. Doesn't feel great. Okay, it's fine. I mean, I don't really want to do anything to any of these cards, but I guess he's got this Grimace floating here that he's never going to get value off, so I guess I just bleed the Grimace and accept. I'll ping other things down to 5 with my leader. Then that's the play here. This is where Marauders would be better than Skirmishers, but the Skirmisher is just a nice option to keep. I don't want to commit to it too early. He's also not got any random damage pings down yet, so... be careful with Justice as well, because Justice spawns the 5 strength Cleaver's Muscle, 5 normally the magic number for Schirru, that you're going to use like in 80% of the games. So yeah, you need to be very careful of that. You can of course use a Caress on him to buff him up, a very reasonable option. That's also where Tempering could come in, or a Dryad Enchantress as well. If I had a Tempering in this hand, it was probably always a mulligan. So, Tempering round 1, would it have done that much for us either? Probably not. Probably a Skirmisher would have been better to have in our hand. Abandoned Girl, pretty slow. Doesn't really achieve too much. Okay, so here comes the first great sword of the day. He misses his random ping with Harold, so I don't even have to invest a leader. I can just rebuke this straight away. I've got the Treants down on the board. I've also got a Symbiosis, so 9 points on that. Is that correct? 8 points on that, while removing a greatsword. Seems good. He does now, of course, have the leader on a greatsword, which is not ideal, but I just need to take care of it as soon as possible. As soon as he leaders, which is now I'm looking to Schirru to take out this Harold as well. I think we just can't answer this. I think we just accept that. Bit of a shame that this has just died. Like, I could... His next play is Hemdor, which buffs by 3. To be fair, I can still deal with this, I think. I'd like to answer Harold now, but I think it's fine. This is where the Skirmish is hopefully going to get some value. Obviously, I'm stacking the row a bit more, but I'm just hoping it's going to hit the shield anyway. Oak as well, nice removal tool. So I've got lots of ways. Oak, which I didn't mention either, can line up more Schirru value too. I think my line of play here is fine. The Greatsword, of course, I would like to kill, but I can't do it straight away anyway, and it just is going to take away from my Schirru value if I worry about it too much. But the Skirmisher just gives us a nice way of threatening it, where he maybe, you know, now he has to Hemdall earlier than he would potentially have liked to. Hopefully we're going to hit the Cleaver's Muscle twice. So we can't really answer this anymore, which is quite scary. It's not the end of the world, really. It's now the time. So I can go ping ping. Can't quite get this down to 5. I think I just throw another rebuke at this, honestly. Just keep threatening it. I've got no other use with this rebuke, so there's no reason not to. If we can line this up with our Schirru, it's just worth it, innit? It's just worth it. So we won round 1 against Skellige, but it looks like we still might lose. But that's just because Skellige's overtuned. But don't forget, the Schirru is going to be huge. Donna comes in. Morkvarg as well is another card we're looking for. We just need this to... We just want to get a random ping on this Cleaver's Muscle. That would help us out no end. Okay. Take stock where we're at. I think I just throw another rebuke at this. keep throwing rebukes. This Cleaver's Muscle is a bit of a pain. We just need Harold to do a job for us. Morkvarg. What else? Turgvi. I've got the answer to. Come on, Harold, do us a favour and hit this. So, if he hasn't got, like, a Zeal damage, which I doubt he has. Yes, he actually Turgvies now. We've got the answer for that as well, which is great for us. This is now at 5, so this is my Schirru. Fortunately, he hits this. I think I just play my Fove, even though my Schirru range is so tempting right now. I just have to take this. True? Or do I just not care? It's possible I just Schirru now. How good is the Greatsword? I don't think it's going to be that good. Sod it, man. I also get my full Vitality value off this play. Morkvarg though. Maybe I should have not gone for that. Sod it. I just guess I'm Schirruing last turn. Trying to win it with Schirru. We just need Harold to hit this. There's a lot of 5s on the board. Obviously, if he plays Morkvarg now, like the Greatsword's out of reach. But then I just greed on my council and I just beg that he hits Cleaver's Muscle. The Morkvarg, again, it's a 5-strength unit. Yes, he hits the Cleaver's Muscle. Let's go, man. So, what's his last card? That's the question, isn't it? Pretty sure I'm just going to greed this. So I'm going to play Leader now. Just get an extra point off Oak. I'm in a bad spot, so I think it's fine to make this line of play. I don't think it's a good last card. Maybe it's Boat. But maybe it's like a Vabion. Win or loss, we have our heads held high. Maybe I just needed to risk a few more mulligans. Hammond, that's fine. Well, let's find out. I'm not doing the maths. Maths is overrated, isn't it? Feels bad, man. So, maybe using the leader charge round 1 loses me the game. But, like, come on. We went first against Skellige at this MMR. You've got to respect it. You've got to respect it. Guys, I'm actually going to leave it there right now because I'm about to start my stream. And I don't want to leave it too late because I would like to start my stream. On stream today, I'm going to be playing some Northern Realms Varaxis. I'm going to obviously be giving this a bit more of a spin. And if you would like to see a Gord list and more gameplay of this deck, please do let me know. It's a really, really fun one. I can upload loads of gameplay from this deck in the next few days. Unfortunately, you don't quite get the win. I wonder if I had Fnay in hand rather than calling for her, if we would have got those extra few points. I think probably we would have. So I think the mulligans on my part were probably the misplay in that game. I think I was supposed to mulligan a Caress. And, yeah. I guess there's also an argument I was just supposed to let the tree die. I'm not sure that would have made a difference. We would have answered the Greatsword. I don't think it was worth, though. Yep, 3 points. Feels bad, but it's a solid effort nonetheless. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you are new here, please do subscribe. And if you guys want to see more Schirru stuff, because it's fun to play, it's good, let me know, because I can record some stuff for you. I'm now off for the summer, so I've not uploaded in like 3 days because I've just been finishing up for the year. setting up for next year. But yeah, summer holidays now, so I've got 6 weeks off where I'm going to be playing lots of Gwent. So any sort of decks you want me to play, let me know. See you guys soon. Aiming for a video every day for the next like 5 weeks. Yeah, look out for that. Wash.